go live.
Oh, ba-da-bop.
And that means we should be live, which we are. John Hayes here. He's saying thumbnail looks professional today with the live stream in red and white today.
How are you here already?
Because I scheduled this.
Oh.
I scheduled.
I got you.
Hey, we had another topic. Somebody somewhere left us a comment. I wanted to think it was John, but it could have been somebody else.
No, it was at the end of last show, last week. Who
Was it
that?
last week?
Yeah, or not last week because we weren't on last week. The week before.
Well,
2
the
weeks
week
ago.
before. So I was looking for that and I didn't see it.
Yeah, I think it was, might have been Dustin. It was something you guys had known about because either I wasn't getting the chat feed or he had left an Instagram message.
No. That was Johnny number 5.
Okay.
Dustin left AI Johnny number 5 short circuit.
No. There was a question.
Was there?
There was a question, and you go, yeah, we'll try and tackle that next week with...
Well, that's what I thought, but I couldn't find it. All right, let me go back and see if I can pull that up. John, how you doing? Oh, look what he wants to talk about. I want to talk about Jarrod's new channel name.
Oh.
I love the new channel name.
How in the world?
Because we stalk you.
I've released no new videos. There's no reason to be over there. So how in the world did you find that out?
He might have found out. You know what he probably found out if I had to guess? Well, maybe not, but he might have. If he looked in the description, it would show in that. So he thinks he commented on a community post of last week being canceled. Oh. I don't know.
Maybe it pulled up the new profile.
Did he comment on the community post? John. What? Ooh, there's 5 comments there. Dun, 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 dun. Happy. No, that's not the right one. Oh, that one's. Now I got to go into studio. The community post from last week would have been deleted. I noticed that it deleted it after like 24 hours or something like that.
He says there's an @ in the description that gives it away.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, because the it went, at Jarrod, Brown, and Jesus.
Yeah, Jarrod Brown. So there's another Jarrod Brown out there. Thieving my name.
Right?
So it's like, what's an alternative?
Comments.
Jarrod Brown 1, Jarrod Brown 2. No.
Oh, where is that at? Newest first, maybe? I can't see
stuff,
the comments from that post. No way. How do I...
Do you think it's still up? I'll go looking. I will risk crashing the internet for it.
I checked. Maybe if I exit out of there. Oop, wait, here's... Nope, that's not a community post. That's
John, my poor wife feels your pain. He says try having John Hayes as a name, and Jessica Brown understands your pain. It's like John Smith out there for women.
Yeah. John says
at least 80 babies.
Doing better.
Yeah. This week was a rough one, buddy.
Oh, that's what it was. Church welcome bags and packets for like visitors.
I don't remember that.
Well, that's because you didn't see the community post. Because you don't ever check this channel.
Nope, not at all. I need to.
I'm trying to find the actual comment. So, like, if I go to content, I can pull up the post. But it shows archived. I wonder if I could unarchive it. Can I unarchive? Visibility. It will not let me unarchive that once it's been archived. And it won't show me the comments. I wonder if I was smart enough to screenshot it. Sometimes I do that because I'm forgetting things. And it's like, I'm going to go ahead and just snap a screenshot. Just in case. The amount of screenshots that I have on here. Man. Nope, I don't have anything screenshot from.
Does that work? Ooh, it almost does.
Does what work?
I'm trying something.
Why are you trying stuff?
Trying to match
Jarrod Brown. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, it just doesn't show me any of the. All right. Well, I know it was. Yeah, John had asked some comment about church welcome packets or bags for visitors. John, if I remember right, it was like, what are our thoughts on them, or do we use any, or something like that? If you can remember exactly how you worded that and phrased it, I will note it down and we can.
We'll do our best
from there. We'll do our best to try to remember it. Do you use anything like that at your church, by the way, Jarrod? That's
a spoiler. We're going to answer it here in a minute, aren't we?
I don't know. Are we? Maybe. Maybe not.
It'd be a one-word answer for me. No.
Oh, well, then maybe we should save that. Tomlinson Road. Zach, right? Saying, hello, gentlemen. Can't stay. Great to see you. Gotta go. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Oh, that's what. Oh, I better make. Oh, that's where where's my thingy at? My Stream Deck. Elgato Stream Deck. I don't want to leave. What do I do if I do that? Ooh, no, I don't want to hit that. Okay, so I need to do.
John, what are you working on today?
Move that thing.
You're in the office. You gotta be.
Where's the hide comment? There's the hide comment. That's the one. I knew I had like an Elgato button, and I almost pressed the Elgato button where I'm used to it being hide comment.
Okay.
But I changed my layout, and because I changed it, had I hit the hide button, it would have actually finished the stream.
So is that like editing where you have like short buttons or hotkeys where you get them going, and then if you change one piece, you're like the whole edit is done for the next 4 days? It's hard to adjust?
No, it's easy to fix and adjust. It's basically like action. So when I want to change scenes, I've just got a button set up for each scene. And then I've got a button set up for like the ticker. And then whenever we put like this comment, I can't remember how I said something after a sermon. You think I'm going to remember something like that from what I said off the seat of my pants?
John, this is interesting actually, because people like Josh, I think like you do. I can't remember what came out of a sermon, what I said, what happened.
You think I do?
I do. I think people like you, my father-in-law has like an auditory learning thing, and he can remember people's sermons from like forever back. He'll say, "Oh yeah, you said 4 weeks ago, blah blah blah," and you're like, "What? What were we preaching on 4 weeks ago?"
I don't remember what I was preaching on 2 weeks ago. I barely remember what I was preaching on last week.
I know like the overall topics, but I don't know what I said.
I'll get most of what I've said, but I've got to think hard about it. But there are certain sermons and things like that I'll catch them and remember them months or years later. But it's only if it's like sticky statements, like where it really clicks. Then I'll catch it. But that's just in everyday life. Now, like my other siblings, they'll remember full scene dialogues from movies that they watched 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like,
it was a different time.
I can only remember a few of those, and they're usually not appropriate things that I should remember.
Absolutely. But in that time frame, we only had a handful of movies that would come out a year, especially like summers and stuff.
Right.
And so whenever it came out, you went back and you rented it and you rented it and you at this store, kids, called like Hastings or Blockbuster or something like that. They used to exist. You would go there on a Friday night. Family Video. You would go there on a Friday night. You would pick out a movie or two on a wall that hosted maybe at the time in its heyday, maybe 30 movies. But the new releases were all that you were after. And they maybe had 2 a month or every 2 months. It was pretty scarce.
Yep.
And you watched them over and over and over and over and over again.
That's true.
Your sister would rent Little Mermaid and you would rent G.I. Joe. And you watched it until the wheels fell off of that.
Welcome to the Vlogpastors Podcast, a podcast all about the stories and strategies of sharing God's love in the digital world. Now, here are two pastors that love to put a camera in their face and walk around in public. They are the Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble of digital ministry, Jarrod Brown and Joshua Verwers.
Oh, that's right. I am Joshua Verwers. That guy is...
I think my name's Jarrod Brown. I'm going to see if I get it out quick enough this time. She cut us off.
Yeah, and you're catching us on the Vlogpastors Podcast. It's the place where our automation cuts us off mid-sentence.
And you can find us here every Wednesday, I think is what we're going to commit to, at 10:30 here on the YouTubes.
That is correct. So that's what the plan is, and in today's episode, we are going to be talking about a couple things that Jarrod does not want us to talk about. Actually, just one thing Jarrod says that we shouldn't talk about. I mean, he wants to talk about it, but he doesn't want to talk about it because...
No, he truly doesn't want to talk about it, but let's do it.
Well, so, in other words, we're going to be talking about the January 6th tapes and whatever our thoughts and musings on that might be. And then I think we're also going to be discussing the Jesus Revolution. And I don't know, we may get to some of your other topics if you guys have got that stuff. So if you've got any topics, you want to make sure to drop them in the comments below and we'll get to that stuff. Jarrod, how you been? It's been 2 weeks since we've seen you. We just said that we were going to try to do this every week, and then we both took spring break off last week.
Yes. I was informed early on last week that I would be taking spring break off. It was a little last minute. So going on about my day, doing my thing on, I think it was Monday morning, and my wife looks over and she says, "I'm on spring break." I'm like, "Yeah, babe, I know you're on spring break. This is awesome. We're going to get to see each other this week a whole lot." And she goes, "Yeah, we are. Take off for spring break." I was like, "No, yeah, you silly. That's, sure, I'll scale back a little bit." She goes, "No, cancel it. Come on. You
right.
Prioritize this. I'm off. I want to spend time with you. We never do something like this. So let's have a staycation. I know what you have. It's in the calendar. Cancel it." It was like, so I text Josh and I'm like, "Hey, it's me. I know we said we weren't going to miss any, but,
right.
Do you think maybe you could let me off on Wednesday?"
And sure. Why not?
I think I think that's kind of our current status, right? Do we want to do it? Yeah, let's do it then. If not, no, let's not do it.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, it wasn't that big of a deal because I'm just sitting there and I'm kind of thinking, like, we might as well. I could have used the extra time off, things have just kind of been hectic and chaotic in my neck of the woods. So it was like, you know what? Having an actual day off was good.
Yeah.
Because I haven't had very many of those in a long time. So yes, I appreciated it. I enjoyed it. It was good. Yeah. Do you feel refreshed?
The odd thing about that, man, is that I could have gone for another week.
Same.
So right there at the end of the week, I thought, I'm going to go nuts. Like, I'm going to actually have to sit here and work through some of my thoughts and be okay with doing nothing. The first 3-4 days, you're just laying there like a bump on the log trying to catch your breath from what you've just come out of. And then that last day or so, I thought, I'm ready to go do something.
Yeah.
But if I had another week to intentionally rest, I think I would be sitting pretty. So, loved it. Yes, it was restful. I could have enjoyed another week.
Yep.
You?
Pretty much the same. It was good. It was restful, although it wasn't even like the week that was restful for me because we're busy. I mean, for those that may not know, grandma, month or two or half, or I don't know, it's been way too long, but she wound up having a stroke. And so there's been lots of in the hospital, into the rehab center, in the hospital, in the rehab center. And between my mom and I, we're making sure that somebody's with her every single day. And the rehab facility is an hour away. So that's fun. And it takes a lot. So even though like the week was off, the week wasn't really off. But yeah, like I could have used another one because last week was the first real week that between her and I, we kind of got a schedule to where we weren't up there like 5 days out of the week, where she would be up a couple days that I wasn't. And maybe it was even 6 days a week that we had been. So this time it was like, I think we each did 4, and had a few days off. And Wednesday was one of those where it's like, it's off. I just got to kind of relax. I didn't have anything to do. Didn't have to go up to Ankeny. Didn't have to do this. It was like, it was refreshing to be able to do that. So I enjoyed that. Could obviously use a whole lot more. Yesterday was one of those that we went up there. Man, I got back from there, went straight into a bus route, got done with that. I was beat. I was ready for bed. And I think I fell asleep about 8:30 last night, which is extremely odd for me because it's usually midnight, 11:30 if I'm lucky.
Wait. You're still driving bus?
I'm still driving bus.
How much longer do we have on this? And are you going to do it next year?
For the love of all that's holy, I hope not.
Dude.
I'm still doing it. I think we're down to like 42 days left for the year. But I mean, who's counting?
Who's counting?
So yeah, there's that. Yeah, and that was one of those that was like, with this transportation director job last year, it siphoned. Basically, it took me away from everything online, which any amount of income and revenue that I was generating online, completely gone. Like there was a trickle that was left, and it was like, well, this isn't going to work. And so basically what I had spent, 3.5 years building up, gone in a matter of 3 months. So now it's, okay, we got to get back into this, but what did I learn over the last 3.5 years that I can ramp that up? Provided I get it up and I can replace the bus driving income at least, then no, I won't be going back next year. They're fully convinced that I am, but it's like, no, I'm not going to. So.
Just think about your day real quick. Well, you probably think about it a lot, but for me, you wake up at an ungodly hour. I'm sorry. I don't know what time it is, but that is way too early.
Right?
0 dark 30.
5:30.
To pick up all these kids, to get them dropped off, to come back home, to handle your own household, whatever issues you got going on, go see grandma an hour away, come back, get prepped to go run bus again, to come back home to pick up all the kids from whatever they're doing going on in the afternoon. Nope.
Right. And I thought back on this.
In that too.
The what?
Schedule and upload in that too. Film something, edit something, and upload something.
Impossible, because it's breaking things up. Like, I'm not able to focus and get in there. And sometimes when I'm like starting the bus route, I was like, you know what? I'm going to record as soon as I get back. And then all of a sudden, an hour and a half with elementary students yelling. And it's like, I'm ready for bed. It's like, I don't want to even look at myself in a camera. It's not going to happen. So that's where it's at. It's been a hassle. And I thought about this, for a while. I was producing so much content on here. I had everybody asking, how are you able to do this with everything that you're doing? And I'm thinking, well, I had, 2 jobs plus online. And I was like, I was making a lot of content. But then I went back on it. A lot of those questions were coming when I was working for the marriage ministry. And so it was like ministry. There was pastoral ministry, marriage ministry, digital ministry. And there was a lot of overlapping on those. So it wasn't like I had to stop one train of thought and then move to the next thing and then stop that and come back over here. It was just slight little pivots, because it was like, oh, this is focused on this seminar that we're producing. And now I need to make some content for that seminar. And then it's like, wait a second, I can pivot right here and I can do this for the digital ministry that I'm doing. And then it's like, oh, now I'm back into church world. And it was a much easier when I was just doing little pivots rather than just full-fledged, full stop. It was like, no, that's not working for me right now. As I think I've said for the last 3 episodes, before we meet again next week, I'll have a new upload.
Let's not lie to one another, shall we?
It's yeah. Apparently, I'm trying to call those things that be not as though they are, and it's not working.
I think it's also it's a common theme for those of us who have been on YouTube for a while. If you look around at the other creators, the big timers too, who have been on 5+ years, they are all throttling back. They're all pushing back against that the narrative of the 3 videos a week, more is better, 2 videos a week, more. And they're saying, wait. and fitting the molds. I don't know how many are releasing videos right now that say maybe just because it's the Mr. Beast style doesn't mean it's the best style. It may get the most views, but that's not necessarily what my channel is about, your channel is about, or whatever. It doesn't scratch the itch of my community's issues. Well, and so I think we're right on time with everybody else. I think everybody else going, wait a minute, let's make real good videos.
Yeah, dial back and make the good videos, make what you can produce. Like, it comes down to consistency, and consistency is going to win out. Wayne Riz hopping in the chat, and he's like, I'm trying to be a 1 video a week guy and talk about consistency. Wayne, I've been seeing your consistency, making that 1 video a week. And that was, kind of this Bible study that he was doing, and he pivoted it from doing with, I think it was one of the guys in the church, and then he kind of pivoted off, and now it's with his daughter. And it's like, that's cool, because that's like a piece of content that he could do. Like, he could create that consistently, and that's my issue, is creating it consistently, because I want to create 18 pieces of content consistently.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, that's not going to work.
We talked about last week, it's sorting out the buckets. If we can get our buckets in place to where it's just like what you were talking about, it's all one vein, where we're going ministry, and production scattered throughout in there somewhere, I think we're golden.
So here's another one that I wasn't planning on talking about, but let's go ahead and talk about it while we're talking about sorting out buckets. YouTube Shorts got me spinning around in my head now, because I did that like separate channel that was like Bible readings, and I was just uploading the shorts there, and then I hit pause on it. It was like, whoa, there's actually a market from that. Now YouTube, they want to sit there and they're like, hey, we figured out that some of your shorts viewers aren't your long form viewers, so we're separating those two, so the shorts performance will not affect your long form performance. And now I'm sitting here thinking, well, maybe I just need to do my Bible readings over on this channel instead of the other channel, because at least I can still pick up the subscribers that way and get like the shorts watch time through that main channel, rather than doing it on a separate channel. And then on top of that, you know what YouTube does just this last week? I don't even know if you saw this. Now they're offering podcasting, like legit
I saw that.
podcasts. Like, I saw it in our back end here when I went to click create to schedule this. I click create and it says new podcast. It'll let you create a new podcast, which is essentially just a what is it? It's just a playlist, which we've already got that playlist that I think I've got linked up on my channel. I don't know if you've got it linked up on your channel, but if you can start to do this, now it's a case of, why do we need all of these separate things? So now I did hear somebody, and I think it was that creator liaison on Twitter, he was answering somebody's question, and he basically said, if it's in kind of the same vein of what you're already doing, then yeah, it works having it on the same channel. But if it's not, I don't know. Which, hey, speaking of which, somebody that was bringing this up in his one of his cohort groups, I don't even remember which one it was, but Trey Van Camp saying shorts seems to be the main way to get subs now. Trey, I think you had brought this up, and hope you don't mind me kind of sharing this out there, but you were talking about
No, I'm kidding.
About using
just be an inner Trey here.
Like his Bible, he was thinking about using his shorts as kind of like Bible review stuff, and keeping that medium form content to be his vlogs, and then longer form something else. Which, like, it's like that hits my brain, and that's exactly how my brain is wired. And it's like, yes, short form content should be shorts, medium form content should be medium, long form should be long form, and viewers aren't necessarily going to watch all of it. It looks like YouTube is finally figuring out this is what works. Just because you're a shorts viewer doesn't mean that you're going to watch the other stuff. Like, I know Dude Perfect gets a ton of shorts views. They never show me any of Dude Perfect shorts. I don't know why. They've never shown them to me. I've never watched them. And I'll have to go back to their YouTube channel to click on the shorts and then see them. And then it's like, oh, okay, that's where they're at. But every single one of their main channel videos, the longer medium form content, it gives me all of them. I see it all the time.
I've gotten to run through this as a consumer. So recently my wife has gotten into guns. Excitement for me. But I'm getting back into it. Been out of it for a long, long time.
Ammunition, arms, not guns.
like ammunition, all the things that gets us kicked off YouTube. Like,
yeah.
Bang bang guns,
Pew
concealed
pews.
carry, yeah, all that stuff. So anyway, I was looking into some videos and like trying to educate myself and maybe pass them along to her. And I found myself doing the shorts thing. So I would find somebody who had a cool topic on shorts, boom. And then after I saw them a couple of times, just running through the shorts because YouTube starts recommending, hey, you're into this, you're into this, you're into this, I'm going to feed you more. Then I found I would prefer faces that I had seen before, that they had referred before, that I had saw something that I liked. And then after a while, I'm watching their long form content. They're a little bit longer, maybe a couple of minutes longer, and now I'm watching their full-fledged long-form total breakdown of things because I trust them, and it's pretty clever. I think they've got it dialed in. If you are researching something for sure, or if you're trying to dive into something, you have a niche that you want to go into. I'm saying as a consumer, man, they've got it dialed in, and that would be the path. It would be shorts, medium, and then long form as you grow in that know, like, trust funnel.
And the thing that I think annoys me about this, by the way, Wayne saying, yep, I put our Bible study discussion podcast playlist into a podcast. Interested how that'll play out. Very interested in how this plays out, especially when rumor has it that not only is that going to show up into the YouTube Music app, but YouTube Music app or YouTube is working on those podcasts, if it's an official podcast, putting out an RSS feed on it. Which if they do that, then he could be their own podcast host. So you wouldn't need something like Podbean or Anchor or it's Spotify for podcasts now, and you wouldn't need that stuff. Buzzsprout, something like that.
Right, wrong, or indifferent, man. YouTube's taking over the world. They're making a lot of really interesting decisions.
YouTube looks at what other people are doing. They see what other people are doing. They figure out where are they coming up short on it, and then it looks like they're just doing it better.
Well, they're one of the few that are able to pivot in all of this. I mean, you're watching Facebook die. You're watching Instagram start to fade to the back. And YouTube's like, man, they're pivoting pretty good.
Not to mention the TikTok ban that is impending. And
hey, listen.
Hey,
I told you. I'm just saying.
Nature abhors a vacuum, and YouTube loves it.
Yeah. I mean, good on them.
Yeah. Now, the frustrating thing for me, though, with all of this, it's like now YouTube has it figured out. I'm frustrated because look at, like, as soon as they announced that shorts were a thing, I was out there doing these Bible videos, like just a Bible verse. That's all I was doing. I was putting them on there. And they started off doing good, and then the rest of my channel died. And it was like, what is going on? Well, now they've figured it out. I was way ahead of the curve. We started hosting the video podcast, the Vlog Pastor podcast, right on the main channel, my channel. And then it was like, all of a sudden, it was kind of siphoning stuff away from it. And I'm like, what is going on? Now it seems like they might have figured it out. And it's like, why do I have to, and why am I an early adopter of these things and then I give up on it too soon?
It is. I think it's part of our calling, honestly, with you and I. We're trailblazers in this. I mean, we're the old cats now. We're
the ones that want
to
stub our toes in here.
Yeah. We are the proof case so that some young buck comes along and goes, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah,
and
but then
they hit it timed just right with the algorithm, and you've got YouTube behind them, and they can launch.
Yep, but then we have like Trey, who's just using wisdom, and he's like, "No, you're probably right. You're probably about to catch on to something, but I'm just going to hold off and I'm going to wait." And he jumps on at the right time.
No, Trey's. There's some people, Trey. I'm sorry if you're still on here. There's some people when they touch it, it's just going to be blessed. It's going to turn to gold. Also, the man dwells in a rocket ship. I'm certain of it now. Have you seen that contraption?
Yes, the contraption is cool. Yeah, he's got a great setup. Yeah.
I mean,
it's crazy.
Hats off to you, man. I don't know how your wife's on board with all this, but hats off to you, good sir.
Yeah, he's got it dialed in well. Jeffrey Collings saying, blessings, pastors. Good to see you here. Trey saying that he's got a buddy who just passed 100K subs. He was under 1K in January. It was all because of shorts.
Crazy.
100,000 in just a couple months. Insane. He does say that subs are just a vanity metric, which is true. It is a vanity metric. But, as he says, it does get your foot in the door at times. It gives you authority, and it helps people click on your next video.
If nothing else, you get another shot with a sub. They have to see your face again and decide, do they want to see you? They get another offering from you. And if they don't, they can slip out, they can
Right.
they can dip out, but you're going to get another offering, and that's more than you can save for. Like if you didn't have the subs, if you're just dwelling around there, very, very low sub count, trying to blaze out some, I don't know, some content, nobody knows who you are. You don't get a second shot. You get one click on the video. But if you got a sub.
Yep. So here, let me just ask you, and I'm just going to let you guys make the ultimate decision on this. So those of you that are in the chat, as well as Jarrod, I will tabulate your votes unofficially.
And then throw them out the window. Let's be honest.
And then I'll throw them out the window and do whatever I feel like I always do. Yeah. But I've got that other channel that most of you have no clue about because I've never officially shared it. Yeah, it's one of the 19, but it's just Bible readings. It's just scripture readings, and that's it. The primary stuff just being shorts. Should I just pull that back over to the main channel and just start posting that stuff there as shorts, or should I leave it over on channel number 19? So what say you? Let me know.
You asking me? Do I get to answer? Can I answer
on
behalf of the group?
It.
Oh, okay. Well, as they're tabulating the results, as they're typing it in there, I say leave it. Like Trey said, that's a vanity metric. If you
leave it on the 19th channel?
Yeah, leave it on the 19th channel. Let that 19th channel be all about the Word of God, like you wanted it to be. Like faceless, nameless, like you don't even see yourself most of the time. You're just reading the Word. Let that puppy be what it is. If they want to find you, they'll find you. And if not, great. Carry on about your business. I just think that the folks who are on that channel are a different, not demographic, but they're a different group
breed
of folks. Yeah, they're a different group of folks who are looking for a different thing than Pastor Joshua.
Okay.
And his content.
John is saying, I say Breaker 19.
Yep.
Wayne is saying, put it back on the What Joshua channel.
No, that thing died a horrible death.
I thought about resurrecting that from the dead as well. So
call it back.
That would be because that's the other thing. Like I've seriously thought about that just because I do get on my channel. I've had some of that stuff that I had on What Joshua, then I brought it back over here. And now those are the type of people that I'm like, I don't want to talk to you about this stuff over here. I just want to ignore you, but I don't feel like I can ignore you because it's a comment. And so if I can put it over there, and then I'll just mention something about I only respond to comments in the first 24 hours of an upload. That way it forces them to put on the notifications. Otherwise, 3 months later when you find my video, too bad, I'm not answering anything. Brian Sorosa saying,
"What's up,
hey
man?
Guys, Brian, good to see you here live." He's been catching the replays of these and leaving lots of comments that I've been going back and replying to that Jarrod has not, because Jarrod never comes over and checks anything out.
After I'm done, I'm done.
He's done. As soon as we hit.
I will do better. It's just not on my list of things to do. It's kind of off my radar. I'll put it on there as best I can. I'll try and get it on the grid. Check the comments. Check the channel. Because right now, no, when we're done filming, I roll out the door. Go on with my day. John will text me. Dustin will text me. That's about it. Maybe.
Yep, which, speaking about texting, Wayne says that he'll have to share some of the Dude Perfect shorts with me since YouTube won't. And John saying, FYI, Josh, I found that comment from the community post and I shot it to you in a DM, which is a great time to let you guys know, hey, if you've got any comments or any topics that you want us to discuss in this or a future episode of the Vlog Pastors Podcast, make sure you let us know. You can send us a comment below, or if you look in the description, you can probably find some of our social handles, at least the ones that we actually want you to find, because Jarrod has one that he doesn't want anybody to know of.
I'm in a bit of a rebrand, and I'm also trying to figure out who I am.
I'm going to start retweeting your tweets just so people know where to find you. That's what
no.
No, don't do that. Fine.
No.
Whatever you do, don't go find Jarrod by going to my who I'm following on Twitter.
Blah 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 blah.
You do. Okay, so also Wayne saying this is my channel and these are the things I do, guys. So I would put the scripture stuff in the main channel. So there's
disagree
that way.
Oh, he's a good man. Disagree with him though.
Disagree.
Hard pass.
Brian, I totally understand. Yeah, and that means what I would probably do instead of putting it on the Breaker 19 channel or on the What Joshua channel or on the Joshua Verwers channel, I will probably
this
create
may be a
channel
problem.
number 20.
Don't do it.
I'm not going to create another channel. I don't even know how many channels I've created.
19.
I create them and then I kill them and stuff like that. So, hey, anyways, Jarrod, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this one. Do you want to talk Jesus Revolution or do you want to talk American Revolution?
No, Jesus first. We can get deleted later. I want to ask you, have you seen the movie yet? Have you seen the movie Jesus Revolution?
I did go see the movie Jesus Revolution. And for those in the chat, we are talking about it. So if you don't want spoilers, well, one, don't research anything about that, or two, don't listen to us. And I don't know when that means you're going to pop back in because we have no time frame and we'll just like ramble until we feel like it. But yes, I have watched it and you watched it, correct?
Yes. So I was given a warning going into it from one of my pastor friends, and exactly what I thought. So I was sitting there, and the whole movie was it was a little bit spoiled for me because I'm waiting for something to happen that's going to turn me off of it. We can talk about that here in a minute, but I want to know one question up front before we dive into the meat and taters. Who did you identify with the most of the main characters? I've noticed that everyone who has come away from that movie has found themselves strongly identifying. I mean, granted, there's pieces of each person, but there's one person who stands out. Who?
So here's the thing. I don't know as I identified with anyone in particular, more that the three main male characters, I identify with all three of them at different times in my ministry.
Absolutely. And if held at gunpoint, fictitiously, of course, if held at gunpoint, who would you say most mirrors your ministry currently? Ish.
Ooh.
Which we'll have to dissect some of this stuff because different people are evolved into different things. And,
who most resembles it currently? Man, we're going to have a lot of dead air here.
The three main characters, for those of you who are listening, if you don't even care about the movie, they are Chuck Smith. He's an older gentleman with an established church, kind of has a certain view upon hippies, at least in the movie, the way the movie tells it. And there's a group of hippies that come into his city, and they have an effect on him. I'm broad strokes in this thing. There's a young man named Greg Laurie. He is a young man trying to find his way in the world, trying to figure out faith and life and everything, just really pursuing every avenue, trying to figure out what there is to life, finds himself folding in with these Jesus people and with the church and, wanting to be a part of all that, encountering Jesus and everything. And then there is a final person named Lonnie Frisbee. Lonnie Frisbee is a hippie. He's the guy who plays Jesus in The Chosen. I can't remember his actual name, Jonathan or something like that.
Rumi, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
Rumi, or
He has a weird accent in this one, which was fun because I'm used to him having that. Anyway, and he is a hippie who has encountered Jesus again and has headed to this new area and is running amok, loving on people and messing things up. So of those three, and that's again broad strokes and very telling of what I think about all of this stuff, but who do you identify with the most, if you had one that just resonated with you?
So for me, I identify with all three of those at different points in the ministry. If I had to pinpoint where I'm at right now, I would probably lean more towards Chuck Smith as where I'm at now. Because I can definitely identify with like the sense that there are I was exposed to somebody who had said a couple different things that got me thinking about the current culture and the people that are out there that are lost and that are needing Jesus but aren't being reached by Jesus because of the traditional way that churches do things and the look that the church traditionally takes on that generation, to the point that it made me reevaluate everything and stop looking at them through the lens of my church history and my theological, lens, but instead start to see them in another view, another eyesight that could give me a different way that God is looking at them and views them. And that then radically transforming the way I approach ministry. And even down to, you watch through the movie, even Chuck Smith in the movie. I mean, he's starting and wearing, he's got, his suit and tie, and that's how he's ministering on Sunday mornings. And then by the end, he's not wearing even a suit jacket. Jarrod, would you believe that I had 2 Sundays in a row recently that I wore this hoodie and preached? I didn't wear the hat, but just the hoodie and jeans, and
it's because Grandma's out of town.
Yeah, Grandma was out of town, so I could get away with it.
She couldn't see it.
I did have to tell on myself when I saw her, and she's like, "That's okay." She didn't care.
Yeah.
But that's part of my churchology, my church upbringing, the lens that I look at things, that it's like, I can't do that. I can't I cannot do this. And then all of a sudden it was like, why can't I? Because I just really don't feel like wearing it anymore. And it's not that I didn't wear it, because this last Sunday I wore my suit jacket, but the prior 2 Sundays, I just didn't feel like it. So I just didn't. And you know what? I survived. And people still got the word. So.
Well, what?
Who did you relate to? You're the one that brought up the question. It's like, who did you relate to in this? Who was the one that you identified with the most?
Oh, Chuck Smith.
Yeah.
1,000%. Like you, I've been a part of each one of their worlds where you're like, oh, just the young kid trying to figure out what's really true, what's really going on here. The woo towards, oh, there's a godly, and then you can operate in a family of faith. That was cool. Definitely around town in Texas, rural, conservative Southern Texas, I probably am a Lonnie Frisbee from time to time to some people. And I can see sometimes it's not fun, but you're just walking around and you're bumping into people. Apparently this isn't common to the church, but having words or having promptings, having nudgings from the Lord, however you want to package that up, for folks can be both beautiful and earth-shaking, and then can be offensive. So the two of that balance I've really identified with Lonnie on. But the Chuck Smith thing, I found myself weeping. Absolutely weeping. I have some words. See, there I go again. I have some indication from the Lord. How about that? We'll make it super, super friendly to all the different.
I love the word. You know what? It's a word. It's a word. It's a word. They can call it whatever they feel like. You and I understand what we're talking about with the word. And if anybody understands our heart, they should understand what we mean by when we're saying we get a word from the Lord. It's not necessarily an audible, booming, heavens parting open and everybody can hear. It's an inward witness. It's a prompting that we're getting in our spirit, man, that we truly believe has come from him and him alone.
Yes.
There. You got a word.
I have over the years received some of those through other people, the Lord speaking a consistent message to me, and it was very similar to Chuck Smith's. And I haven't had a grid to understand what he's been trying to say to me about, a people group coming and needing a shepherd type of a thing, and to see it visualized on, it's their interpretations, their time. I get it. It was the hippie movement. It'll look differently, in my day, but to see something like that visualized, dude, I was undone. To say I was weeping in the audience was
I was struggling to hold the tears back and struggling unsuccessfully.
Yeah.
The only successfulness that I had with not crying was that it wasn't an audible sobbing. Like, I was able to keep most of that in. There was at one point, like where you're trying to hold the audible sob out and it's like almost a hiccup sound. That was about all that came out.
Yeah.
But I get it, especially, and like, I think it's, I was just looking up here, Brian, he mentions it here in the chat. He says, I enjoyed the dynamic between Chuck's character and his daughter. Dude,
yeah,
that got me. That moment in the living room when he's looking at her and just the pure joy of the Lord that has come upon her face, that nothing else can put that face on. And his look at her and just, he's lit up, and oh man, it got me. Like, it just pulled, because I mean, relatable to me. And I'm like, I can't handle this. But that's something that I think the movie did a great part. Yes, this is the 70s. Yes, this happened, decades ago. This was a different generation. The same principle is playing out currently in our generation, but where are the Chuck Smiths and the Lonnie Frisbees? And even you look at, okay, yeah, so Lonnie came in, and Lonnie, I would say he was like the spark that really kind of ignited it. To me, a Chuck Smith is the one that was fanning the flame of it. And he's like, we've got a spark. We've got a little ember going on. We need this to light on fire. And then you've got the Greg Laurie that is carrying that torch and running with it. And to me, like, that's where I do identify with the Chuck Smith of it. Because it was like, I had those spark moments. And now it's like, I'm one of those that is beating the drum and saying that there is this generation out there that the church is failing to reach, because the church is failing to reach them with the medium that they enjoy and they receive from. Back then, it was music. Music was one of the biggest ways to reach them and to hit them. And we've seen, even historically, music has done that over the generations. It just speaks to people. But the current generation, where are their eyeballs at? Where is their attention? Get them from where they're at, because they're searching and they're looking and they're lost, and they are trying to figure out who they are and how they should be identified in their life. And what they don't realize is that the only identification that they ever need is to identify as a child of God. But they don't have anybody reaching them and telling them that in a method, in a manner, and in a medium that they will receive from. So here are you and I, and several that are hanging out here in the chat with us, and we're saying there's this digital medium, and every single one of them has access to our platforms right at their fingertips. Go preach in the digital world. And that's where it's like I start to identify with Chuck, I think, in that current medium because of that. It's like, this could be very powerful. And it spoke to me. Like, it really did. I absolutely loved it.
Did you have any negative takeaways? Because apparently it sparked a bit of controversy, even so much so that that pastor friend of mine said, "Hey, did you happen to notice anything out of the movie?" And it was like, "Yeah, I did."
There was one moment that I remember watching it, and I can't even remember exactly what it was, but it was one moment where I'm watching, and it was starting to get a little like political and touching and rubbing in on where we're currently at in this day and age. And I'm like, oh, you're going to open up the door. And it was a lot of that, doing what you want and feeding the flesh, and a lot of that goes around currently. And it looked like they were rubbing up next to it really hard. And I'm like, oh, great. This is going to be one of those clips that people that have that agenda are going to pull this clip out, and they're going to use it to wave their big prideful banner around with. But it flipped. Like, I saw them heading down this way, and then all of a sudden it like veered right, as in correct. And it was like, oh, okay, you kept it. So as long as anybody watches that in context, I don't think they'll have an issue with it. And it was one of those that, as I had an issue with it, it quickly went away to the point I don't remember that exact, spot in the movie currently. Other than that, I didn't really have any negatives that I could think of. How about you?
Okay, so I was I'm new to all the characters, really. I mean, I know Greg Laurie at a distance, the whole Chuck Smith, Jesus People movement. I've done, moderate research into it just to know that, pretty cool thing goes on out there. Knew some of the key players, but not necessarily their full background and how it all came to be and that sort of thing. So I'm watching this movie, and I'm noticing that at certain key junctures, the ones that I mean are Catherine Coleman shows up and interviews Lonnie Frisbee, and all of a sudden he takes a narcissistic right turn. I don't know if you noticed that in the movie.
Yeah.
All of us, he moves from presence, power, sitting with the people of God in the presence of God. All the stuff that nobody's gonna have a problem with. Right. Bible studies all day long. Like let's do that thing. But then all of a sudden it bends towards a miraculous side, or the thing that we were talking about earlier, words and promptings and nudgings type thing. And Catherine Coleman shows up, and it becomes portrayed as a pride issue. And then we dive into and here's the balance on the back end of the movie. Lonnie rolls out, and I remember watching it, not knowing any of the stories behind any of this stuff. It was just like it's incongruent with the character that they had developed up until then. I mean, they showed maybe like a hint or two that he may have some issues behind the scenes, which was true. But at the very end of the movie, it's just like, see you, kid, I can't be here for you, bye. It's like, well, that's not anything that was portrayed up until now. Storytelling wise, it just felt a little out of place. Enough so that I diving into the backstory to find out, what are they either trying to honorably push aside, kind of mull over, which was the obviously the homosexual issues, or at least stuff that goes on with that in Lonnie's story, and some of the fighting and stuff that was going on apparently with his wife, and the strain on the marriage from being out all the time, as we all pastors know. You're dealing with stuff you're going to have. Oh, I'm frozen.
Oh, you're good. You're just starting to freeze up at this point. Yeah, and I get what you're talking about, where it was the that little bit of just kind of they were pushing it aside. The thing that, like, I get what you're saying where it comes to maybe not quite being I don't know. It wasn't I don't think it was set up well. If that makes sense. So it just seemed like they could have done, from a pure storytelling perspective, what might have worked a little bit better is if they had just done like, I don't know, kind of giving it a little bit more setup, kind of pointing to a little bit more of those instances, planting the seeds to be able to call back a little bit. If those seeds had kind of come in just a hair more, where it was kind of showing, here are the setups. It seemed abrupt to me, is what I took out of it, that it was just kind of all of a sudden he took that hard right instead of it being a veered off. Because I've at least seen in ministry and even studying church history, there are a lot of people that do that, where they're operating in the power of God, but pride quickly comes in and they veer off. But if you look at that long enough, you can see the signs that were coming, that it was going there. I had an issue with it being as abrupt as it was.
Yeah.
But continue that thought that you had with it.
Yeah, just getting to the point. I think you summed it up pretty nicely. Here's the thing. I think it was written in such a way, and I need to acknowledge that evangelistically, that was an amazing movie. I cried through most of it. Like it was awesome. It was just flat out awesome. Yeah. And it stands alone. That is something that everyone should go see. You're going to have God moments in it. Its main premise, I felt like, was that there's something other. You're not going to find it in the flesh, satisfying the flesh. You're going to find it in the person of Jesus. And I mean, that's a really great message. But I'm concerned in that the way that it's told mitigates the power of God showing up that really spurred on a lot of why that movement was what it was in Lonnie. Like it's accurately told through the Greg Laurie, Chuck Smith side, and I think it's digestible by most of Christianity. If you share the messy parts of the spark, as you called him, the Lonnie side. Now Lonnie's not part of my stream, nothing like that. It's like I'm not dying on that hill. But I can recognize that when they showed what he went through, like he had to stop a service. You remember there was like everything gets kind of slow motiony and it gets awkward.
Yeah.
And he has, there's somebody with like a deaf ear. I can't remember what the situation was, but he goes and that person is healed. Well, apparently that stuff was going off like crazy all the time. I mean, when people are being miraculously healed, set free, delivered, all this stuff is going on. That stuff is the spark. those are the initial points where people get super interested and realize that something other is at work and there's something real and tangible in our midst. Yeah. And to package it up in such a way that he's narcissistic and he's ruining meetings, I can totally see that from one perspective. But from another perspective, my perspective, if you were to silence or stop those types of encounters, spirit movement, now there's order to worship. Don't get me wrong. Right. There's order to worship. But if there is something right here, right now, word of God that needs to be, somebody potentially could have blind eyes open up in this meeting, I think you sacrifice another worship set or a scripture reading in order to see somebody's eyes opened up for the rest of their lives. And I think people long to see that. And I think it was told in a way that was deprecating towards Lonnie and that stream. And that was pretty much the only issues I saw,
I looked at that through my own personal experience lens, because I've been in similar meetings where I'm listening to somebody minister the word of God, and then somebody stands up and starts proclaiming out a word. As a very analytical person who, and this was even early Christian for me, analytical person, but who has a decent grasp of scripture. I knew that God is not the author of confusion, and I was instantly confused. So I took it from that moment when that's happened to me in one of those that I was like, okay, well, when did the confusion start? And what is the root of that confusion? Right. And I can only sit there and then come to one of two conclusions, because there are two words of the Lord coming at the same time. One is from the preaching and teaching, and one is from just a word of wisdom, word of knowledge, whatever one of the gifts are in, one of those auditory gifts. So it has to come, the confusion, from one of those two places. Which one is more likely to be, in my mind, where that confusion would come? I can't ever see it coming from the preaching, teaching of the word, because I'm sitting there and I'm saying, do I truly believe that this minister is being spirit-led and delivering this message? If he is, then the Holy Spirit's not going to interrupt himself with another Holy Spirit word. So that's where the confusion kind of comes in. So I appreciated the fact that they did kind of show that confrontation at one point in the meeting where it's like, no, hold on, you're doing things out of order right here. Mm-hmm. And it was enough that the way it was portrayed, at least in my vantage point, that I didn't know who was in the right or who was in the wrong. But I knew that there was a division here and that something was happening, and it would be found out. And then the behind the scenes, whether right or wrong, that at least you've got Chuck Smith saying, hey, I'm trying to work with you in this, but there's a moment here where we're not walking in a line, in an agreement.
Right.
And so something has to happen. Would you be willing to go over here? I'll help you go here and do what you did here. To me, that would be fair and the right thing to do. The fact that then it was like Lonnie saying, no, I just want to overtake right here, and I want to do this, and you can go over there. And it was like, I'm not quite sure. And that would be hard as a one setting in the congregation at that point. I appreciated how they showed it. And I appreciated that they didn't, like, I thought they could have put a few more seeds to let us see that there could be something brewing here. Because in hindsight, you can always see those in ministry. Like, even when I've been wrong and I've been in error and had to be corrected, I could look back in hindsight and see those moments where my flesh rose up and led me to this point. So I think it would have been good if they showed a few more of those just so we could see it coming a little bit. I think it would have been more palatable for it and for us to see, okay, there's something that's coming up. But it was so abrupt that it was jarring.
Yeah.
And that it did kind of, it affected me in a way that it brought back that memory of being in those type of services when that gets, and being in the type of service where I've been the one ministering and somebody stands up. And I'm like, hey, Chuck Smith, you handled that a whole lot better than I did, because I kicked him straight out of the church. And I was like, there ain't no way. And I was like, you will not interrupt, because, hey, if I'm wrong and I'm not the one being led by the Holy Spirit, God's going to deal with me. But you're not going to come in here and cause confusion, because now everybody that's listening to the word is completely confused and they've forgotten anything that came out of my mouth at the moment. They're only focused on this issue. And I was like, so go. And then to try to regain ground on that point. And fortunately for me, in that situation where it happened to me personally, it was one that individual did kind of downward spiral. And so those that were able to see it, they're like, okay, yeah, you were able to see it. But I fully even acknowledged to the church, I was like, hey, I could be wrong here. That could have been God. I don't believe it is. And that's my belief. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it wasn't. My belief is it's not, based on this. And go from there. But like you, dude.
As far as the movie
overall,
goes,
I was wrecked by that movie, and I was encouraged by that movie, because I'm looking at it. I was like, how many people are going to see this and get excited and on fire for God and willing to go and do things that they've never gone and done? They're willing to take their little Jesus out of the box and say, I want you to have a revolution in my life so I can help others. Like, it was amazing.
I think there are so many beautiful things that came out of that movie. That one little hiccup, but really they couldn't have put it into the movie. That's really what we're talking about, is like a 404 concept for the church. This is maturity. And, I think they portrayed it as best they could. And could you imagine if you haven't seen something like that happen before, where the church, as far as you can remember back, has been, and people keep packaging it up like suits and ties and that sort of thing, but it has been formalized and structured, and you have this group of people who are dirty and still addicted to drugs and still have their old lifestyles, and they're fighting through that, and Jesus is setting them free, and that was messy. And to be able to incorporate all of that, I mean, there's so many beautiful things here, but I also see it as a challenge for the church to grapple with some of those deeper issues like you were talking about. They could not have done it in that movie. Correct. But it needs to be they could not. I mean, they did as best they could. They could. Well, like you said, they could have placed a few more seeds, a little indicators along the way that there's some stuff going on with Lonnie. We're all imperfect, right? We're in progress. But this guy's got something going on right now. Let's sort it out. This is how we tried to sort it out, which is what they did. They did as best they could with it. But in hindsight, looking back on that, there was a jarring thing that pulled me out of the story that went, okay, we as a church, if you're a believer, something's unfinished here, and there's some maturity in the church that needs to happen, because without Lonnie, that doesn't happen. Without Chuck, that doesn't happen. Without Greg, that doesn't happen. And they each represent different aspects of that beautiful mix that God put together. It needed the spark. It needed the countercultural. It needed to reach deep evangelistically into the kids. It needed to have miracle signs and wonders. It needed leadership. It needed a shepherd. It needed stability. It needed the word. It needed structure. It needed youth. It needed fire. It needed curiosity. It needed the passing of the torch. Like each one of those guys represented something.
Can I put a caveat, like one letter, to that statement you said? You said, and I'll explain why, and then just tell me if yes, that's a good caveat, or if you disagree. You said it needed Lonnie, it needed Chuck, it needed Greg. I would like to put a caveat in there that it needed a Lonnie. No.
Chuck,
it needed a Greg.
Absolutely.
And that only jarred in my mind because Catherine Kuhlman was also represented in here. I mean, in a very small cameo, but Catherine Kuhlman, you can go back and you can see some of her interviews, and people were asking, why did God choose her? And she basically said, God didn't choose me. He chose other people, but none of them would answer the call. So he settled with me. And that's where it's like, I truly believe he needed, like, God needed, and that's hard to say God needed, but the situation needed a Lonnie, somebody that was of that background and that freedom, that liberty, that is willing to just go recklessly wherever he feels like God is leading him, and needed a Chuck who is open to what God wants to do, but is not used to it and is jarred by it and is initially resistant to it because that's not the way we've done things. And needed a Greg who is so hungry for truth that he's willing to pursue it and then run with it. It's that and that's where I think part of the Lonnie issue is that Lonnie didn't, I don't think Lonnie was appreciating the fact that revolution, the Jesus People movement, needed a Lonnie. He believed it needed Lonnie. And it's like, it doesn't need you. It needs someone like you. And God is using you because you're the first one to be willing to do it. But if you don't answer that call, God's not going to wait around for you to just get your act together. If it's on his timing to do something, he's going to grab the next man up. And that's where I think there's, a humility that comes in ministry of thinking that maybe we're bigger and more important than we are. And that's where it's like taking that David approach, like, who am I that God is mindful of me? Like, who am I that he would use me? But then just being in awe and being so appreciative. Thank God he's using me. Because, all of this is nothing without him. And that was the one cool thing. Like, when I looked back on it, I didn't just see Lonnie and Chuck and Greg. I saw God in Lonnie, God in Chuck, God in Greg, God in Lonnie, who still had a lot of issues and a lot of things that he was struggling with and a lot that was wrong. But one thing that he got that was right, that so few of us do, he was following wherever Jesus was leading. And it was like, I'm going to follow you. I don't understand it. I don't have to understand it. I don't have to have a degree or any official title. All I need to have is you. Yeah. That was cool to me to see that. And I walked away with it with very little knowledge of the situation, the overall as well. But going back and doing the same thing and kind of looking at it, and I probably had even more appreciation for Lonnie. Because even seeing how things played out, it's like, but all of that he was struggling with, and he was still used by God in a mighty way. And without him in there, it wouldn't have been that exact same way. Like, God used him, that specific individual, at that specific time for that specific purpose. And without him there, it would have looked different. It would have had the same impact because God will get his way, but it would have been different. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm 1,000% on board with you on that. It could have been a truckers movement. That's where I go.
Right.
No, I'm serious. I'm like a huge sovereignty of God guy, though I am. I believe in the absolute sovereignty of God, but he just has his way of operating outside of the way that we think.
Right.
Where this could have easily been a truckers movement. I'm going to use them as an example. He could have called a trucker named Ronnie Crisby. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be. And then he would be the one that we would go, you remember the trucker movement way back in the day? It had Ronnie Crisby. He was amazing. Or, I don't know, switch their names around, switch their lives around. It wouldn't have mattered much. Like, he was a hard-nosed trucker who never got out of the seat. It doesn't matter. I think God is incredible. He told a masterful story with the Jesus People movement. He's going to do it again. That's his thing. It's not that he tells the exact same story. It's going to look different, but he's going to do it again. I don't know when that is. You don't know when that is, but he's going to do it again because it's in his nature. He's going to call out to his people the next evolution of somebody who says, that's what in our church we call ourselves, like, yes, Lord people. Yep. Like, we just want to say yes to the invitations that he's given it. Here I am. Yep. It is incredibly hard, seeing as how we have a lot of pastors on with us today. It is incredibly hard I sympathize for Lonnie. I sympathize for pastors who get distracted from time to time and we are praying for people and a word comes. And I don't know if, I'm sure you have, because if you're a pastor, you've had this situation. Let's say you have a friend, and they've been working with a guy for 6 months, and they've been pouring in, and God's been giving revelation as to what's going on, and they've been working through addictions, we'll say. They've been working through addictions, and they come in and they ask for the prayers of the elders and the pastors and everything, and you pray for them, and everybody, and again, words come, and the person is encountered. And as you're praying over this person, maybe you are given a piece of that puzzle, and maybe somebody else is given a piece of that puzzle, and together in that person's life, it's forming this God encounter, this God moment. But when you come away from that moment, you are tempted to feel like, it was the word that I got. Because when God deposits that divinity, that word, it's probably too far, but whenever he pushes something through you, it's other, and it's powerful, and you feel the power behind it, and it's fun to communicate that, and you feel like it has impact. But I guarantee you, everyone else around that circle who was praying for that person in bondage feels the exact same way. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, but it's tempting to go, my word brought the breakthrough, or to be the friend who brought the person in after 6 months, and God says the same thing that he's been saying to you, through you, to that person for 6 months, to not go, oh, come on.
Hello.
I've been saying,
Where have I been?
This. This is what the Lord told me 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we get caught up in that process. And that's just a word about like addiction and stuff. Could you imagine if you laid your hands on someone and their eyes opened up? It's hard not to be a part of that process and go, initially, holy cow, I was a part of something absolutely other.
Yep.
But also, like, just the mental gymnastics of like, these hands right here, eh?
Right. Yeah,
You did what you did, and there's nothing to be here, but like, that was amazing.
Yeah,
and
sure.
it is, the wipeout. I mean, even Catherine had her struggles. Like, it's a bloody path. And I guess my whole spiel of even bringing that up today was an awesome movie, but my whole spiel is that there is some definite maturing that the church can take away from all of this, that we need absolutely everybody, all hands on deck, but it doesn't require you.
Right. And I think that's something that is a great point. Like, here's something for churches, and actually get a couple comments. Jeffrey Calling saying, I was thinking of having my church go to the movie on Sunday or Wednesday. And I would say, yes, have them go on Sunday or Wednesday, and then let them know, like, the following Sunday or Wednesday, if you guys do like a home group or small group studies or whatever, or you just get a teaching time, we're going to discuss some things a little bit deeper. And then you can draw out some of these things and take those as teaching moments to help with the spiritual maturity, to show, here you go, the concepts that Jarrod and I are dancing around, and, the 404, it's like, all right, this is advanced level stuff that is rarely going to happen, but it may happen, and they need to be able to understand how to see, correctly. So I think it's a great one. John saying, Pastor, this week was the last. This week was the last week at the closest theater 30 miles for us. And it's a good movie. I do recommend, if you haven't seen it, see it. There is it's now the highest grossing Lionsgate film since John Wick, I believe.
Really?
So, yeah. Like, since pre-COVID, it's the highest grossing film that Lionsgate has had. And pre-COVID, the highest grossing one they had in 2019 was John Wick 3. Which, can you believe it's been 4 years?
Hey, is it this week?
It is Friday.
I'm just saying.
John Wick Day. We might have to discuss another movie next week.
On another topic. Totally unrelated.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. John Hayes saying, I recognize the pride there as well. But I did notice that Greg Laurie made mention that Lonnie was actually gone before the tent meetings even started. He was only in the small chapel building. Yeah. Let's see. Augie, good to see you. Said, agree. It was out of place where the frisbee twist, but there was large amounts of infighting. The homosexuality he still struggled with, the straight up heresy that he taught and he passed. I will also say that he did an abrupt change, like within months, he went from where he started in the movie to where he became super selfish. And it's not enough that I have a lot of knowledge on that, just like a very surface overview of that. But yeah, it was a great movie. John's saying the message that people were searching is definitely a huge takeaway from that movie, and it still rings true. Brian says there apparently were some major moves of the Spirit in that movement. Absolutely. He's also said, I've heard it said that healing is the dinner bell to salvation. Yeah, I mean, sometimes God's going to reach you however he can. And he's got that unrelenting love towards us that he is going to search us out and keep pursuing us until he has a relationship with us. So I love that there's a lot of these different things in there. I'm looking at some others. Diana in the chat saying, hey, don't forget, hit that like button if you're enjoying the conversation. We're about ready to get into January 6th, so then you can hit the down vote. Do they still have the thumbs down on these? So you can
I think they took them away. They were rude.
I don't know. Augie's saying, I felt it was very respectful how they treated Frisbee, but it was abrupt for sure.
You could tell. That's what got me to researching it. You could tell they were being polite about something. They were dancing around. Something significant had happened.
Yeah. Yep. It needed everyone knowing where their seat on the bus is. I'm not sure if that was for the same thing or for a different one on there.
Hey, it applies here too. It honestly
yeah.
does. It really does. I mean, like a trusted authority structure that is connected through relationship. I mean, if they are committed to one another, there is nothing more powerful on this planet, man. And there just truly is not.
Yep. John's saying we got to embrace the messiness of broken people.
Yeah.
God uses the mess, and it works so well. Hey, I know there's a few others on here. Yeah, and John is saying the thumbs down's still there, just don't show a number anymore. So as we get ready to talk about that date, January 6th.
Also with the thumbs down thing, right?
Yes.
With so the thumbs down. I started making a bunch of, not to distract from the January 6th deal at all, but I started making shorts for the church. I shouldn't say we started making shorts for the church, and noticed that I have an insane amount of downvotes. More than it's amazing. It's amazing. I went on my channel. I have every now and again somebody will downvote you. You have a 98%, overall rating, but mostly it's the home team. It's all my friends and family going, "Hey, we love this, yay!" But on the church in shorts, because it's hitting that broader audience, they're like, you can take you and your God. And it's like, yeah, all right. More downvotes than upvotes. The percentages are low.
Yes, I like the thumbs downs, and quite frankly, YouTube doesn't care. YouTube doesn't care. Just
interactions. Yeah. No, they don't care.
Which is always funny because people are like, I'm gonna give you a thumbs down, and YouTube's not gonna show this to anybody, and be like,
light it up.
If you took the time to push a button, YouTube's like, oh, he wanted to interact.
That is honestly what I said with somebody who was commenting the other day. I'm like, listen, you've made several comments. Do you have a real question here? I feel like you're making so much of this. Yeah. You wanna ask something. Can we talk? I hadn't heard back, but
hey, Jarrod, while we still got a few more minutes here, January 6th.
Man, looks like I got to head out.
January 6th.
Okay, you ready to do this? Yeah.
We will. I think we'll keep it fairly brief,
just
for the sake of. I was going to say demonetization, but we're not monetized anyway, so who cares?
Who cares?
But let me start it with this. Is it possible?
I just want you to know that you're asking for this.
I'm asking for this. Is it possible for two things to be true at the same time?
Yes.
And do you believe that when it comes to January 6th, there is a situation of two things being true at the same time? Some of what we have been told being true, and some of what we suspected was a blatant lie being true.
If you're talking YouTube percentages right now, I would say There is less truth.
Okay, so we know that there was a rally January 6th, correct?
There was a rally. There was indeed a rally. Two, some may say.
Was there some rioting?
Absolutely.
By not a large amount that wanted violence, but by a small select group.
Infinitesimal small group. Yes, go ahead.
That primarily, if I'm correct in this, and I could be wrong on some of my facts, but primarily the rioting was outside, not inside. And the majority of the minimal violence that took place was outside and not inside. And yet the majority that were there were rallying peaceably.
Sure, but that would be like a BLM riot. It was mostly peaceful.
The majority that were at that rally were there for peaceful reasons. True.
Yeah, but here's the thing: you can't hold the same disgust for what happened in whatever that summer was prior to. You have to account into we have to go here now. Now we got to go there. Okay. You have to bring into context what is going on at the time. Correct. The magnitude of what is going on at the time. The world is near melting down from our perspective. And what I mean by that is, and not just the elections, that we'll get there. I'm saying there are cities that are burning. They're being taken over by mob
leading up to January 6th.
Protests that are mostly peaceful, and I will give that two truth thing. Mostly peaceful. I would bet you that most of the folks showed up to peacefully protest and say, we have a grievance here. But in those protests, it gets out of hand. And then you have thugs and hooligans. And now you have, I wouldn't show up anymore because that's what they're showing up for. They're showing up to be violent and burn cities down. And now we're doing this in a violent way. That is okay. And I'm going to take this out of the what's it called? January 6th insurrection. Mm-hmm. I'm going to move that out of that. I'm talking about the riots that happened in LA, all the stuff that was going on, Portland, all leading the things that are going on.
Yes.
Right, leading up
to it. Which most
people
people are not taking that into consideration, that this nation was on a tipping point. Like, something was going to happen. It was just a matter of time because stuff was already happening.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're looking at calling in National Guards. You're looking at city police not able to withstand attacks. They're bunkering in City Hall, and they're trying to drive through gates, push through gates, and the police was only allowed to give a limited response. So these rioters were emboldened to be even more and more and more and more aggressive,
right? Because
it was a one-sided, you can't fire back type of a thing. Now, I do not condone it at all. Obviously, it was outspoken at the time. We talked about it a handful of times on the show. It's ridiculous, and those people should have been met with equal force. Samey, but you have war in the streets. If you're going to have a war in the streets, let's go to war in the streets. Sorry. Figuratively, okay? How about that? Right. I'm not calling for any sort of violence or anything like that.
We do not condone, we're not promoting, no.
Theoretically, if what was going on, force needed to be met with force in order to keep order. And if it was an actual thing where the mass population was not being heard and needed to, or not mass population, but there was enough that felt so strong that they would lay down their lives, so be it. Let it be done. And let's see where this lands. Yeah. This needs to be a total social reformation in our culture. Let the pieces fall where they may.
Here's one of the issues that I took leading into that. There was a lot of call for this to take place, to try to overthrow the government from certified electoral votes at the state level, going to the nation's capital to try to do that.
Yes.
And I've read the Constitution. I don't see any constitutional path for you to riot and have an insurrection to try to overthrow or to push Mike Pence's hand to somehow decertify what has been duly certified at the state level. Like, I don't see that path being there. I took issue with those calls because I was like, that's That's not the American way. That's not the constitutional way. That's not the path that we have. We have paths for this. That's not it.
Absolutely. On this, in a normal cycle, I would say 10 years ago, I would have actually, before 2020, I would have agreed with you.
Yeah.
Here's what happened. Everything I just mentioned about if you believe strongly enough in a cause, laid it all down, all that stuff like that, wore it out in the streets, figuratively speaking.
Yeah.
That is all prior to what I'm about to talk. That's not even talking about January 6th. That's all that summer that led up to it.
Correct.
Now you have all of that sauce that's been building. I would say conservative Republican folks did not participate in much of those riots. I can't do a head count, but I'm guessing that was a predominantly one-sided equation.
I know some that did.
Okay.
Like not personally, but I know of some, and they are in those conservative Republican circles.
I'm talking about the summer prior to January 6th.
Oh, the summer prior, no.
I would say
no.
Nobody,
but
really.
January 6th, yes.
But it is accepted that we can now riot and smash things and do whatever. Okay. So this
Correct,
is the terms that are established. We've burned down cities up into this point. We have not called in the National Guard because we're going to make a mess in our protests. And this is going to be okay by us, right? Wait.
If you're a child, yes.
Not? Double standards. I get you.
If you're a child and you believe do as I do, not do as I say, and if you believe that one 100%. Wrong deserves another, yes.
Well, here's the deal. So you can feel, I need to set the atmosphere of the time. Yeah. That's the feeling. That's the sense of time. Do I agree with it? Absolutely not. By the way, I mean, as strong as I feel about the January 6th thing, no. So, but you have to have the context of what is going on in our nation. And then you have a candidate that is running there. By the way, I'm sorry, I'm going to speak to you conservatives out there. There is only one party. You have to sift between who you can vote for out of that party right now if you want your vote to count. I'm upset with Republicans right now. I would used to be like, oh, I'm kind of a moderate. No, like, come on, there's nobody. So they run Sleepy Joe Biden, and I know I'm using the term here because that was actually stuck. The guy did not show up to any debates. I mean, they hopped him up, but like he did not campaign. I shouldn't say show up to any debates. He did show up to the debates. He didn't show up to anything else. He was in a basement. He did nothing. And I know that's not downplaying it. He hid. That was the strategy for the entire campaign. Yeah. Fine. Is what it is. People are tired of Trump. I get it. An entire group, an entire side, since we are pretty much split as a nation, is totally against Trump. Get it. This is the background and the sauce.
Yep.
And so whenever you swing into this, you have lawlessness and riots and all this stuff going on, and you are voting for president. This is the most important election that has ever existed in the time. Okay, I don't know, but in the time, it feels like this is the most important. People are going to be coming out in mass. There's talk about possible, and the media is feeding this thing. There's possible voter fraud that's going to be happening. So for your vote needs to count double. Get out there and vote. You're going to have people lined up. Get out there and vote. People are lined up around the corners everywhere to make their vote. And while we're voting, just in case we've forgotten, there are people who are being intimidated right and left to go to the polls. But there are places in key states, key voting polls, who have blocked out and denied access to reporters, to the people who are supposed to be monitoring and making sure this is a free and fair election. I'm going to make sure and say all the things to get us kicked off today. Make sure that this is the most free and fair election that's ever taken place. Yeah. You can't go into those places. There's intimidation, there's violence, and there's some sketchy stuff going on before we even head to the night of. The night of, we go to bed, and the projected winner of the 2020 elections is Donald Trump by
you went to bed that night?
Good margin. By a good margin. I'm not saying anything about the man's character. I'm not saying listen, he is what he is. It is what it is. Republicans have a mess on their hands. They frustrate me more than the Democrats. But the base is rallied. How about this?
Let me just put it here. He was leading by a large margin because of the early reporting numbers that come primarily from right-leaning states, which have actually got their act together. Yes.
Who went and voted in person. So the places You just understand where I'm coming from here. This is
correct.
I'm only representing a
We're not in-person voting. It was delayed. It was mail-in. It was absentee
so now you're
ballots.
Counting absentee mail-in ballots in these places that I'm talking about that have it blacked out where you can't go in, that are obviously Democratic-run voting centers.
And the frustration because Amazon can deliver anything I want the next day and you can't add up a bunch of votes in that time frame.
Absolutely.
What is wrong with you?
So here you have to understand the perception in order to understand
frustration and
January 6th. Because when you go to bed going, okay, well, that was closer than you would like, but I'm surprised as many people voted for Joe Biden as they did.
Yep.
Texas is swinging incredibly purple these days, but let's go on about our business.
Thank you.
But
California.
we're pretty sure Michigan and Illinois, they're going to get it all sorted out by tomorrow. I mean, come on, don't even think about Arizona. Let's just right? We got this. Let's do this thing. We're going to wake up tomorrow with Georgia. Come on, we're going to wake up with a sound understanding. We just need a handful of states. He's going to close this thing out.
Happen.
Everybody, all the news anchors close it down. Man, this is shock and awe. They can't believe this happened. You wake up the next morning, and if you didn't go to bed, you probably didn't have this experience. But if you wake up the next morning,
you start to see it slowly. Yeah.
Slowly, nothing. They cannot get their acts together, and this looks like a concerted effort that somebody has some sort of strategy to work some sort of system to hold people off long enough. And now you're having, and this may happen every election, but I'm saying it is on display that there are missing ballots. There are ballots that are not being counted. There are ballots that are being miscounted. There are people who are hiding things. This is off the rails. We need a revote. We need the whole place to be locked down and revoted because you're watching one after the other, and it's almost like more antagonizing.
Yep.
So that is the soup of what creates January 6th. So
and while we're all that frustrated because we're thinking that there is something deceptive going on, there is some type of a conspiracy, and we've got this theory with no facts to it yet, but it's at least a conspiracy, and we think somebody's out with an agenda. While all that is going on, the rest of the world is looking at us and thinking, I thought you guys were supposed to be a superpower. You can't even do simple math.
Oh, it's frustrating.
And it's like, and then what do? We make it worse come January 6th by acting like children again.
No, here's the problem. Here's where we're going to disagree.
All right.
I'm going to say something live and
I
on
like
air.
the rallying.
Live and on air,
Stop.
man.
Say it.
If what took place, if what we believed when we woke up on that morning actually took place in our republic, we did not go far enough.
On January 6th?
At all.
If
at all, ever.
So here's the thing. I don't think that there's enough that actually believe what many believed on.
No, that's been proven to be true. And I think even the January 6th folks would have to yield to that concession. Even the people who showed up. I'll tell you, man, I don't have the logistic planning, but I have sympathy for the January 6th people who showed up to protest because I could very easily have been in that number. That I felt truly
I'm all for the protesting. I'm all for doing that. I think the protesting should have continued to gather, but I think the issue is that
like a Canadian trucker. not like a
Right. I think that the protest should have grown. I do not believe the protest should have turned into rioting. Because when we start behaving the same way that we've been condoning for 6 months, we're condoning this behavior. And then even in that moment where there's a small group that wants to break out in that's where it all started to go wrong. And then what makes it even worse is because all of a sudden it makes it even worse because that wasn't what the majority there were for. And we didn't know that until here we are, how many years later?
And he says that there's not a concerted effort against this thing. There is a concerted effort. There is a plan here. We just became aware.
Correct. We just became aware. At the time, we were unaware. We had no proof.
That's something a billionaire playboy has been trying to tell us for a long time. I do not. He said when he first got into office, the first time, okay, so 2016, when he comes in, he's talking about fake news. And I'm like, come on, guy. Listen, you've got a lot of bravado. You need to chill out just a little bit. You're lucky to have been elected.
And Elon Musk proved that there is some fake news out there with the release of the Twitter files. And now Tucker Carlson comes out and he releases all this video footage. And it's like, oh, so you mean to tell me that the guy that was walking around with a buffalo hat that was apparently trying to rally people up to violence, the cameras don't actually say that's true? And he wasn't actually carrying a weapon, and he didn't force himself in. Instead, Capitol Police escorted him around and even unlocked and opened doors for him. And when he was up there with his little mega horn, all he was doing was praying and thanking God for the police that allowed him the opportunity to come in there. Oh, that's not what we've been told.
That's a problem. That's a problem that he ushered in 2016. So now you have distrust for the media and how they're reporting things.
Correct.
You have mayors, you have governors who are not executing his orders. As the president of the United States, whenever they have rioting and stuff going on in the streets. So now you have, from their perspective, the January 6th insurrectionist perspective, you have a stolen election. Okay.
Yes.
And even with the people who are there to protest, albeit they are rowdy. Come on, man. This is you're talking about the backwoods, backwater. If this is true, if they call us hillbilly, whatever, however they want to label the right, dumber version, we also represent the military and are highly trained and are probably carrying the most. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we are able to secure that facility with a quickness. That is a handful. What you saw was a handful of bad actors. The only thing that I saw people pulling people down whenever they went to smash in windows. I saw people saying, we don't act like that. I saw people saying, we're not here for all that mess.
Right.
I did
because we realize it's going to give us a bad name.
Yep.
And it's not right.
And here's the thing.
Don't do it that way.
But if you were there, because I got to say, I'm one of those gun-toting preachers, okay?
Yep.
I'm one of those black robe folks.
Black Road Regiment.
Black Road Regiment. If your country is in revolution, as they thought at the time, they did not go far enough. They, at bare minimum, could have held that building until things were. I'm not saying they hurt anybody at all. And if you don't, here's the thing: you have to pay the consequences. Winning party wins.
Yeah.
Winning. So they held the Capitol. They're all traitors. And treason, 4 years prison for walking on the premises. I don't know if you saw some of the stuff today. More people going to jail, walking through there. I took a picture of one just because I figured you might bring something like this.
And the craziest part about all of this is all of the conspiracy that was around, the theories that were around January 6th. Once the tapes have been released, once you start to see the full accounting, the full record, it's no longer a theory. It is a conspiracy to push forward a completely false narrative and motive. Were there people that died January 6th? Absolutely. Well, there was one that died.
Let's do this. One
died by gun, and that was a police officer that shot her.
One. What did the others die of?
Natural causes.
Natural causes.
But I'm saying there were people that died. There were people that died that day. There's like 5 that died that day, but only one was not by natural causes, and it wasn't any of the Capitol Police that did not die by natural causes.
One. We're not talking about heart attacks.
Correct.
One person by violence, by force.
Correct.
One person. And that was the person. And hats off to the guy. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
This is where I say that the conflict is what the conflict is. This is where we have to decide. We can't have it both ways. You're barricaded behind. He is very scared. There's a mob of people who are coming in. They've already breached several things. He feels like he's the last line of defense. I get it. And she is banking on that they have just walked past a whole bunch of Capitol Police. They have ushered them in through they are nearly supporting their holding of this deal. And every barrier they go past, they get celebrated. So she goes into this next one where he's saying, stop, 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 stop. And she gets shot.
And not doing it.
I'm just saying, where is that video? It's out there. But like, why is that not a part of the case? Where are these
that's
things?
where I'm saying it's no longer a conspiracy theory that the media was hiding things behind January 6th and trying to put forward this false narrative, and that the Democrats in leadership were putting forward this false narrative, and that even the Republican Mitch McConnell, if I remember right, he was saying that when Fox News was saying something that he's like, you can't say that because it goes against the official, government statement on that. And it's like, no, the truth is the truth. We're not here to put forward any narrative by anybody. We put forward the truth. The truth is the only thing that is going to allow us. And that's where it's like, what we need is full transparency.
Thank you, my good sir.
Full transparency. Don't hide anything.
In the wake of this, and you're getting to the end really quickly. I know you got to go, but I'm not done. You opened this can of worms. I'm not done. So what is it? What was it? New York, $9.1 or $9.25 million that they're going to pay to the people who rioted. Okay, because they were out there because they were beating around with batons, and we're giving 4-year sentences to the people who. What is the difference? What is the difference? Truly,
we don't have enough time to cover all of the difference. But if I were to summarize it, what is the difference? The ideology behind right and wrong and truth. That's the biggest difference.
Here's what should have happened. Here's what should have happened in an ideal world, even if the Democrats won. So why there was such pressure on Pence? I'll give you some understanding on what we were thinking. Okay,
I understand the pressure
on Pence
and everything.
Was not to overthrow the election, was to give time to say, stop. Why are we rushing this deal? Well, we have to sign it because that's what our Constitution says. I got you, but let's just hold what we got, because from everyone in my crew's perspective, conservative, Republican type, weird hillbilly gun-toting, mentally handicapped folks, we felt like this was stolen, absolutely stolen, and nobody's voice, whether they be Republican or Democrat, was heard accurately. So we need to pause. Now, if the Democrats were to win that exchange, that little encounter, and they needed to pause and say there was something wrong in full transparency, like you were saying. We need to see what the truth is, whether we need to recount. This has never been seen before. Okay, let's stop and do it again. Do over. Or let's stop and take our time and investigate. Let's take a month. Let's take a year. I don't care. Interim government. I don't care. We have no trust in our electoral system right now. And that's all that was for Pence, was to say, okay, Republicans, hold it.
Fair enough.
For just a second, hold it. And I would have been just as upset. Let's just say the Republicans take the Supreme Court. They put pressure on Pence, and this is degrading quickly. I apologize, but they put pressure on Pence. They were able to capture all of the Congress, and he changes his vote, or what, I don't know, whatever. And they occupy it like the truckers do, like some sort of peaceful hostage situation or something. This is so nuts. Anyway, it's silly, but they hold it. I would be equally as frustrated with the Republicans for not looking into, not being completely 1,000% transparent, which is where my rub is these days. Okay, my rub is more with Republicans.
Here was what I was going to, when I'm calling for full transparency, like, I'm all good with, Tucker Carlson getting all of the footage before everybody else. I'm not okay with them just not releasing it everywhere.
Oh, it needs to go everywhere. After he's had fun. I get it. We're capitalism. But
you put it everywhere. We have crowdfunding where people can go through and they can view it. They can see it, because the truth will come out through that.
He needed to have this. This was, I get what they tried to do. They're trying to be transparent, to give it to somebody that they trust, handing out, you get priority. Yeah. This is the old school system. But they should have said, you have 2 weeks. You have 7 days to go through this footage, and then we're releasing it to everyone else.
And this is also part of the issue that I had with the Twitter files too, because that was one of those things that you give it to a select group, and it's like, but why haven't you just released and made it public for everyone? Now, with Twitter, I understand it to a different degree because it's still a private company, and they don't have to do whatever they want with it. But it's still going to have people thinking maybe, which even you listen to like the hearings and stuff, and that was the narrative. Maybe you're not saying everything. Maybe there's something hidden. Why don't you release it out here? Are you an actual journalist? But now we've got a case where this is government. Like, we have a Freedom of Information Act. How about just anybody in the government, just do a FOIA request for everything and then just put it out there?
Well, here's the problem, my friend. This is why we are broke. No, they have been. So we are broken until fixed. We need a massive overhaul if it can be overhauled. I'm very pessimistic about it.
So here's where I want to bring this back. I want to tie this in.
Well, hold on, because I'm not done ranting, man. Because if you have these mock trials, if you have the Senate who are calling in people who are they're coming in, yeah, the public gets to see it, but we know the game now. The people who come in give you no information or they lie about it, and then there's no consequences ever.
And there has to be consequences. Yeah.
There has to be consequences. So at current, you have no government. And you have no confidence in the electoral process. You have no government that's operating in your best interest that you know of. No way to hold them accountable. We are now being ruled by tyrants, both parties. So,
but I think I have the solution, and I think we've seen the solution. And I think you and I kind of touched on the solution earlier. And there's a reason that I wanted to put Jesus Revolution with January 6th. And you sent me in that DM. I see where you're going with this. So the way I see it is, there's no consensus and there's no division. And yes, you've got a couple bad actors and you have some issues that are going on when, like, the issues. Can you imagine what would have happened if Chuck Smith and Alani weren't able, like, if they would just kept fighting and they just kept showing up and they just kept interrupting? There is no Jesus Revolution. There is no Jesus People Movement, because all of a sudden it's going to look like every other denominational squabble that has ever happened. There has to be an ability to come, let's reason together. If there is only a two-party system in here, then the one party that has been having infighting for years, and I'm saying I've been seeing the infighting ratcheting up since 2008, if they don't get their act together, then there will be nothing left of that party. And that party is dwindling rapidly because there are many that are still part of that party. I'm not one of them. And they are part of the Republican Party, and they're saying, well, if you don't vote for our candidate, then you're not going to have a vote that matters. And I'm sitting there and be like, I don't care. I'm going to vote for who I believe will actually represent me. If you want me to vote for your candidate, then how about you put up a candidate that I actually feels that represents me? If you don't count on my vote. And don't say that if I don't vote for them, then I'm voting for the other person, because I'm not voting for the other person either, which means that I am voting for yours, which means I'm voting for neither, which means I'm voting for both, and now I've committed election fraud. It's like, no, that doesn't make sense. Instead, there needs to be a moment, and this is what happens throughout even church history where we see these big moves. There's a point where you have to have open dialogue and communication and say, here are the things that we will not cave on and that we will not give into. Like, we will always believe in the truthfulness and the inerrancy of God's word. And that is something that we will not compromise on. If you want to compromise on that, go find another movement, go find another denomination, because we're not having it. That's where I'm saying there needs to be full truth. There needs to be full transparency. And for the Republican Party to have any chance, because Iowa's a microcosm of what goes on in the U.S. It's one of the reasons that we've been one of the first in nation caucus states for so long. We're a small state with very few counties, and you can pull the full Grassley and visit all 99 counties because it doesn't take more than a few hours from drive one side to the other. It's not like in Texas where it takes you 14 hours to drive across the state. You can get across the state in 3 hours. And because of that, every single presidential candidate comes here, and we just don't care that you're a presidential candidate. You got to put your pants on the same as we do. It's one leg at a time. You're not Superman. You're a human being, and we're going to ask you the tough questions, and we're going to put you through the ringer. Because of that, we've seen the Republican Party crumbling down up until just the last couple years, because there has been a lot more consensus, at least on the state level, where they're starting to say, oh, you mean the Christian conservative base that didn't vote for us when we swung purple? There were things that we wouldn't stand for that you didn't like? Yes. And because you wouldn't do what we had said you must do to keep our vote, we didn't give you our vote, and we went purple, and you got scared, and you came back and saying, okay, we'll do what you asked now. We'll stand for those things which you have held as non-negotiables. And then what happens? We went redder than we've ever went. For that Republican Party, and I'm focusing just on that, but for them to finally get their act together, they're going to have to be honest and stop dismissing the Christian conservative base and saying, you'll always vote with us, because if you don't, your vote doesn't matter. Because there are a minority in that silent majority that we will stand up and say, no, I'm not playing your game. It's not going to work. And you can have whoever you want, because I don't care who's in the White House. I know who's on the throne, and that's what we're going to focus on. And because of that, it's like, okay, so you guys got Biden. Don't say that I gave you Biden. You did it. You didn't want to do what I had told you to do. You didn't want to offer up somebody that I had said would actually represent me and my core values. And because of that, you get what you get. If we can get back to that moment, then all of a sudden you get a point where in that Jesus revolution, where you have a little bit of a division, but saying, hey, if we cannot get along, then we need to go our separate ways, because we're going to do more harm to each other. And then let them go their separate ways, and one will rise and one will fall. And then you'll see a true revolution come out of it. That's, in my opinion, what is going to have to happen. And that takes all of us to really turn inward and say, what do we hold more important? The values or the votes? And that's where it'll come down to. If we're going with the votes, we're going to go to the majority of our party. If we're going to the values, we're going to say we'll only vote for the party if the party's actually supporting our values. And on a national level, they haven't been doing it. And that's why you're seeing the nation do exactly what Iowa has done, and it's turning more purple than it ever has. And it's like when the momentum was swinging there, all of a sudden in one election, it swings back the other way. And it's like, well, what just happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened. I and hundreds that I know weren't going to vote for. We were writing in our own candidates. Now, was mine now found out to be as equally morally corrupt? Probably. It's like I don't condone that stuff, but that's where I think it needs to come back. And that's where I did see that group saying there are things that we are fighting for. There is our liberty. There is our freedoms, and they're being taken away from us. And they're being taken away from us without us knowing. And it's all being under cloak and dagger and behind the curtains, and we don't see anything. And it's like, if you're at least going to do this and take stuff away, I want to know why, I want to know how, and I want to know who's doing it. So that way I can make sure not to go down that path again. But it's not happening. We're not seeing it. So I don't know. I mean, that's where I think
I love it. I like
there needs to be unity, not division. And that's where I don't know how that happens other than having open, honest dialogue and a respect for somebody that disagrees with me and saying, okay, you're a fiscal conservative. I'm a social conservative. I'm fiscally conservative with, like, I want to be fiscally conservative with the government's money, but I want to be fiscally liberal with my money. I want to freely give as much away as I possibly can, but I'm not going to do that with somebody else's money. But socially, no, I'm 100% conservative. Like, I will not compromise on many things. Like, there's just no room for compromise, and I don't play the compromise game.
I get it, man. There's certain things that we stay out of. For instance, like immigration. Like, Come on, that's a policy deal. I feel the effects of it every day.
Right.
This is bad. There's fentanyl flooding our streets now. Like, because we're chasing people, because we have to hold them and we have to play a game of bad policy. Now, I will tell you, my city...
And you and I aren't anti-immigration. We're anti-illegal immigration.
No, and that's just the thing. Like, even in all that, it's not that I don't care. I care. It impacts me greatly.
Correct.
This is not a hill to die on. What is a hill to die on is whenever you are not represented in your government, and their tyranny, let's just say it.
Yeah.
Their oppression is felt on every level. We are on a platform that could kick us off for the things that we say, the ideas that we have, and this very nation was formulated on us being able to have a dialogue and say the things that we believe freely, and we cannot do that any longer. And if our vote doesn't count, our word doesn't count, and they can oppress our children at will.
That's where I will sit there and say, like, I understand, and the chat has seen this. They're understanding the passion that you've gotten, that you're coming across with this. They fully understand it. I fully understand it because I've been there. Like, and again, microcosm. I'm more focused on the local elections than even on the national election.
Same.
And on the local level, like when you just made that statement, it's like, what happens when you can't find representation or your vote doesn't matter? You know what? I haven't found it in Iowa, and I didn't find representation. And what did I do? I withheld the only thing that I had. Fine. If you won't represent me, you don't get my vote. And as soon as we started losing House and Senate seats, all of a sudden, Iowa politics started to panic. And then they started asking the right questions. What do we have to do to earn your vote back? Represent me and my values. Stand for the things that I stand for. And if you say it on the campaign trail, I expect you to actually do it when you're governing. And if you don't, fool me once, fool me twice. And that's where, like, I get what you're saying and that thing. I want the representation at the national level. I think, and this is maybe me being prayerfully, hopefully optimistic, I believe it is coming because I believe that we're all feeling the brunt of it in such a way that we're questioning things. And I believe that the party is offering up a lot more options that will actually align with the majority's values. It's just whether or not they finally put it forward. And the only way that's going to be putting it forward is if it's putting forward the interest of the people rather than the interest of the people with the deep pocketbooks. And that's typically not how politics is played. However, even if the ones with the pocketbooks want their stuff to go through, they're going to have to figure out that they need the votes, and you got to give us a little bit. And if you don't give us a little bit, you ain't getting a little bit either.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine playing the game as long as I get what I want.
Well, what if this is where I am? So I live in a bubble. To give you some background, I live in a bubble. I live in probably the greatest city area in the country. People are transparent. Handshake, word means what it is. If there's something that goes on, they're going to dig into the background of it and make sure everybody knows sunlight's a great disinfectant. They are men and women of
Light
integrity.
Light exposes darkness.
And I feel like we live in a bubble, and they are Christian. For the most part, and the ones who aren't are amicable. They are people of peace. They are looking for answers that would help our kids. All the things. I live in a bubble. I cannot imagine, and I get a little taste of that whenever it goes outside of this bubble. And it's not a vote thing, but to have the votes, the ideologies of other people's crazy pants forced on me. Yeah. And I think what is nice about when people of peace or Christians or whatever you want to call them are in authority, then life abounds. Like we have, everybody hates it, but I'm just gonna go out there and say it. The marry who you want thing, great. Marry who you want. Do I line up with that? No, but marry who you do your thing. You do you, boo. It's when you shift and it becomes a policy for me that I now have to support. I have to say verbally affirming things. I have to smile and nod. I have to give my nope. Okay. kids and direction, the things that they educate our kids with. That was a thing that came to a very a school board issue in the last couple of weeks, and thank goodness we have an amazing school board who said, "Hey, whoa, there's certain things that our kids here in Stephenville we aren't doing that."
Right.
But those policies are trickling down in the most rural of environments, conservative environments that don't want those ideologies enforced upon their kids, and it's a right problem. And to not have any recourse, not have an avenue where we go, hey, this is not what we want, this is not what I want, and I don't vote for you, and they go, fine, sure, whatever, because the votes don't matter anymore anyway. Cranking them out, from my perspective, doesn't matter anymore. We put in position who we want to put in position. Judicial systems, crazy pants. What is going on today in New York? I get it, but like, I guess to take the heat away, to find some answers. It is starting in where you are, in the Jerusalem of things, in Judea, and going out and seeing good quality elected officials. We need a reformation like you would not believe. We need a Jesus revolution like you would not believe, and that he is the ultimate answer. But I do have frustrations to have the full January 6th insurrection. Was, let me just say that the controversial bit, that was not an insurrection. If that was occupied right now, by the folks who were trained alongside me, who are of the Republic, that thing would either be wiped off the map. They would have said that's too much trouble to have, or that would have been an insurrection.
I'm good with them saying there was a rally. I'm good with their saying there was a protest.
It went awry.
I'm good. We're saying that there was a riot. I'm not good with an insurrection. I'm with you on that, and here's the thing: words mean things. Like I'm not even okay with them having a same-sex marriage, because same-sex marriage is an oxymoron. Like marriage, it was defined by God. One man, one woman. That's different sexes, and there are only two of them. And it's like, no. Like, I'm not okay with it. You want to have your own civil union? I could give two squirts, but don't use holy, biblical, God-ordained terminology to identify your sin. Like that, I don't like that any more than I like the hijacking of the rainbow, which is God's promise of a covenant. It's like, I'm just not okay with that. But you do it, fine. Don't ever ask me to condone it or promote it, because it'll never happen. Doesn't mean I don't like you. Doesn't mean I don't love you. Doesn't mean I won't show you respect and treat you with kindness and compassion. I'm just not going to ever affirm anybody's sin. I don't even affirm my own sin. I rebuke my own sin when it's exposed. When the Holy Spirit exposes it, I'm like, oh man, I'm an idiot. And when I mess up, if it's in a public fashion, you know what I do? I publicly acknowledge that I messed up. And there may be a chance that somewhere something was said in this episode of the podcast, and all of a sudden we wind up
surely not
saying something that was wrong. And if so, and if it's exposed, and if I can see where it was sinful, I'll apologize publicly. I don't care. I find much comfort in saying I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
And I was wrong. Because it makes me remember I am a mere mortal. I am a human being that makes mistakes and things get messy, but I know the one who cleans the mess and the one who is perfect, who is not me.
That used to always make me cringe about the pastors who would write books, and it's codified. It's in ink, and then they would die on that hill of what they had said or their understanding of something at the time. And I just thought, that's so silly, man. We're constantly in process, and God's showing us and revealing things, and more truth is coming, and we don't have a stranglehold on all of the facts and evidence or truth. But no, man, I appreciate you bringing up the topic. So glad.
Hey,
I'm sure I said nothing inflammatory today.
You know that it's not, it's not holy and righteous to lie, right?
I'm not lying. I ain't lying. I just don't need to
thank you for
overshare.
Okay, so hey, as far as next week goes, what do you want to talk about? Let's give them a little teaser.
Yeah, what were the questions? There was a question or two that we didn't get to.
There was one question from John, and he had asked our thoughts on church welcome packets and stuff like that. So if we got something on our thoughts. We'll have to look at it. He actually sent me, no, never mind. He did tell me that in the comments, he said he sent me a DM. He found the comment in his YouTube history, took a screenshot or something. He says, okay, I got one for you, and brace yourself, Josh, or start smiling, Jarrod. It's a multi-part question. Would you expect any less out of me? Visitor package, bag, gifts. Do you have one? If you do, what's in it? How much of it has the church logo or name on it? And enjoy the break, even though it doesn't seem very springish. So there is something that we can talk about. We typically are hitting 2 to 3 different subjects, so I think we'll definitely talk about that. I'm sure you're going to see John Wick part 4,
100%.
right?
100%.
So I think we'll have to talk about that, and maybe we can even over spiritualize the movie and find like a theological nugget.
No. I want to enjoy it the first time through. I don't want to be going like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, but I think we'll definitely discuss that.
All the enemies of God must die. I'm trying to package it up in here. Gouge out their eye with a pencil. Let's see. No. The plank right there, huh?
The plank in your eye.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so mean. I love it. And if you don't know what we're talking about, well, go watch John Wick. But just be warned, it's not PG. Then again, neither is the Bible. Let's see. I'm looking. They were talking about, somebody said, have you heard of the movie Come Out in Jesus' Name? Only in passing. I heard somebody say that it's coming out, but I haven't really seen anything about it. Yeah, Pastor, I have seen Come Out in Jesus' Name. Yeah, John was saying, Josh hitting something with the other party being united, even though they're bad. Look at the confirmation of the House Speaker. Yep. There's a lot of Jarrod is saying the standard was set by everything that happened over the last 6 months up to January 6th. Pastor Jeffrey calling, I agree with you, Jarrod. And Augie saying, you can't tell that Jarrod is passionate.
Nope. I warned him.
Yep. Yeah, and John saying, in the meantime, the world is looking at us and laughing that we can't get along internally.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That bothers me.
We will talk about visitor welcome packets and stuff like that. We will talk about John Wick, and I don't know what else we're going to talk about. We'll figure it out. You guys can follow along with us on socials. We'll probably be absent on them until next week, but hey, who knows? Maybe we'll show up. Anything else you can think of?
Actually, I got one thing. A friend of mine, Chris Worthington, he just made a movie, just released a mini series. I think it's going to be on Netflix if you want to go look for it. It's called Multiply, and it is following the life of Daniel Kalinda, and pretty cool stuff. Anyway, just real proud of him because he did all the behind the scenes, the documentary work, all the camera stuff. So see it if you can. Multiply. Coming soon on Netflix, or is it already out on Netflix? I think this is its first week on Netflix. I don't know when I'm allowed to announce that, but I think it's this week. I don't know when you're allowed to announce that. He's been kicking it back and forth for a while, and he's been kind of working on some of the final stuff and seeing who's going to distribute it. And it was between, I can't remember if it was Amazon, Netflix, or who. So I'll have more details on that next week for sure. Because I mean, it'll still be around, but. Yet. If you want to catch it week 1, I think I saw a Netflix banner on it. So,
okay, cool.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, that's all I've got. We'll figure out what we're talking about in addition to the other things that we're talking about next week. And until then, stay blessed, enjoy God's best, and have a fantastic week.